Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Style Your Health. We are in 2023. Can't believe it. And everybody right now is making resolutions about like, I have to get healthy this year. I have to start exercising program. I have to go join the gym. I have to go do this kind of diet to get healthy or lose weight. Um, and we have a lot of things going on in our mind, but we don't have a plan how to execute it. And I have a great person here. I have Dr. Julia Huber. She is a board certified emergency medicine physician, and she's a physician coach as well as she's a lifestyle medicine board certified, and she runs a wellness program. So we're gonna try to ask her a few questions about how to execute our plan, because the having a plan is one thing, but how to execute is a big challenge. So I welcome Dr. Julia Hiberg here. Julia, would you mind telling a little bit about yourself?
Sure. And I think you pretty much covered it. I practiced emergency medicine for over 2 decades and continue to practice emergency medicine in the form of telemedicine. But I also have a practice in coaching as well as a practice in lifestyle medicine in Kentucky and in Virginia. And helping support people in living the lives that they want to lead is just absolutely a passion of mine. So many people feel stopped and feel stuck. And what they don't realize is that they can take some very simple steps towards their wellness, very simple ones that will ultimately have a very tremendous impact on their lives. And it's really exciting to work with people towards their goals.
Thank you so much, Julia, for the wonderful introduction. And my first question is like, I mean, I have ton of my patients wanting to exercise and willing to exercise, but they
Mhm.
don't know how to start and where to start. And what advice would you give for them and how to get started, how to get motivated on that? Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yes, and thanks for asking me about it. I'm really glad that your patients are coming to you first. I think that a lot of times people get really enthusiastic about starting on a plan of exercise or diet or that type of thing. And the tendency is to start on fads or extreme forms of exercise. And not everyone is going to continue with those levels of exercise. And not everyone's body is ready for certain types of exercise. So I'm really glad to hear that you've got patients coming to you first so they can get cleared by you, particularly people who've got any type of cardiac issues underlying, and also people who've got some weight issues, because the type of exercise that they choose really needs to be informed, so that they're so that you can minimize injuries. Um, I think that when people start on a plan, that they need to keep things very, very simple. You didn't get into this situation overnight. You're not going to get into it overnight. And there needs to be some grace about that. So, whatever choices that you've made in the past, just release those and let them be in the past and look at the present. Look at your willingness to shift a little bit and just choose either one or even a couple small areas in your life where you want to see a little bit of progress and look at what's important about that to you. For example, a lot of people say, "Oh, I really want to lose the X amount of pounds," and they're kind of beating themselves up because they feel they have to look a certain way or that people are judging them. But if you can get a little perspective on it and say, I've got grandkids and I really want to be able to run around with them at the playground or in the backyard or be able to go to the mall and take them shopping or whatever activities you do. And that matters to me. So if you can look at what matters to you and keep that overarching goal in mind, then a lot of times it makes it easier to make those food choices. Rather than beating yourself up, you can look at the real value behind it and underneath it. So I think that's a really good place to start, is not so much with a really hefty program as people often do at New Year's, but to really take a quiet assessment of your life and see where you want to shift things a little bit in this year and in the years to come.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, trying to take priority on like what matters to you is the best way to start. I'm glad you mentioned about that. Yeah, and that's a great advice, guys. Like, I mean, trying to see like the why behind it. And
Yes.
yeah, and that itself motivates you. My next question to you is, I talk to, I'm a primary care, and and obesity as well as lifestyle. So I talk to a lot of people about like diet changes, what they need to
Hmm.
do. And
Hmm.
a lot of people are motivated when I'm in the clinic, when they are in the clinic, but like when they go home, they have too many things to do. So, what advice would you give in the New Year's that people have to start doing the diet, what they need to do, and how to keep them motivated?
I think that's a really, really good question. I think that a lot of times it's hard to go it alone. If you've got a friend or a work colleague or someone you know who's just supportive in general, maybe it's someone you've met at the gym, it really is helpful to have a partner. And I'm not talking about the partner that you live with who may be critical of you. It may be a different type of partner who's maybe a little bit more objective, who can really, really listen to you and really kind of walk with you along this path. I think having support is really, really key. And so if you start on a goal, then find somebody else who also has goals. They may be different goals, and find an accountability partner. I think that'll be really helpful in those times when you feel really alone. There may be somebody that you can call and say, "Hey, I feel like I'm just, not really feeling like I can do this now." And you need someone who's going to champion you a little bit. So I think that's important. I think it's also important to set yourself up for success. I think that sometimes we set up really, really huge goals that we can't achieve, and then we feel bad, and then we say, "See, that didn't work." So set yourself a goal that is just wonderfully easy and feels good. Because a lot of times we feel that with diet, we have to eat really awful foods, things that don't appeal to us. And who wants to eat things that don't suit us? And so I think it's helpful to look at the foods that you do like and think about what you love about those, and see if you can find some substitutes if you feel like you want to make healthier choices. For example, a lot of people love really creamy textures, like ice cream and that type of thing. Is there something else that you could substitute? For example, there are a lot of recipes for whipping up silken tofu and adding a little bit of chocolate or things like that, where you can feel like, okay, I've got that aspect that feels really appealing to me, and yet I'm not consuming that many calories. So kind of see where you can figure out what appeals to you. Another thing that appeals to people is comfort food, for example. It's not just texture, but it's more like the smell or the association. And it may be a certain type of spice. Maybe your mom or your dad cooked that or offered it to you, or maybe it's associated with like a certain activity or holiday, and find out how you can appeal to your senses without all of those calories. So really make your food sensual and appealing, and satisfying with texture and look and smell. So there are a lot of ways to kind of satisfy yourself without feeling like you have to load on those calories. Another thing to do is to look at the healthy foods that you really like that appeal to you. And it may be something simple like, berries, or it may be something simple like a really, fresh salad, or something that you find really, really appealing, and set yourself up for success. Don't just kind of buy those things and shove them in the back of your refrigerator, but really prep them and put them so that when you open up your refrigerator, that's what you see first, and it looks appealing. It is attractive to you. And so make these very, very small steps. One of the guidelines that we have in lifestyle medicine, for example, is to eat a rainbow. So find the brilliantly colored vegetables and fruits that really appeal to you. When you go to the grocery store, don't just say, "Oh gosh, I really need to eat more, fill in the blank, whether it's Brussels sprouts or whatever." And look and maybe even try some different vegetables that you've never tried before, just for fun. For example, would be, say, purple carrots or whatever at the grocery store, just so things are a little bit more appealing to you. The more that you can kind of satisfy those needs, to satisfy your senses, the less apt you'll be to just kind of um, shove food down, kind of looking for something that you might not be able to even satisfy even when you're done eating the food. I think that being mindful about your food choices is really, really helpful. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that you have to be in a meditative state. It just means that you're actually taking the time to respect your body a little bit. And you can give yourself messages as you eat your food and really look at, as I said, look at the value behind your food and make a decision about it. I think a lot of times when we don't eat mindfully, that's when we kind of go on autopilot. And there's a lot of like a misguided attempt to self-soothe, that even at the end of the day, at the end of eating that pint of ice cream or whatever, really isn't satisfying. So set yourself up to be a little bit more mindful. And then also, if you're not feeling mindful, the first thing that you see when you open the fridge is something that you've already put there that is appealing.
Yeah, I mean, that's wonderful. I always tell patients in my obesity practice, see, here's the thing, your mind has to love the food. And
Yes.
the taste buds have
Yeah.
to do it. And
Yes.
to be honest, I always tell them like healthy food can be tasty. I
Yes.
always tell them leverage the social media, leverage your YouTube, and whatever recipe you can make, whatever recipe, like I mean you want to make, like try to think about it for a minute. How can I make it healthy? And you
Hmm.
get your answers.
Hmm. Yeah. And the other
So
thing to do too is, there will be times when you eat that pint of ice cream or whatever. And I think it's important to not beat yourself up about that. Just say,
right,
okay, that happened, and I'm still going to keep my eye on the prize.
right. Yeah,
I'm
that's
not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to weigh myself. I'm
day
not going to starve myself the next day or do something radical or try to run 10 miles to run it off.
Mm,
Be a little bit forgiving of yourself. I
yeah,
think that it's not going to be a, straight linear trajectory like, okay, it's New Year's. I made this decision and now I'm just going to eat raspberries all day and then
right,
everything's going to
right.
be just fine.
Yeah,
It's going to be one day you feel really good and you're right on it. And then there may be a day when your body wants to kind of pull that
exactly.
back. And what you'll find is as you practice, just like with exercise or playing the piano or anything that you learned to do, whether it was you learned to walk when you were little, is that you just need to have that muscle strength. And so we make these decisions, and it may be that we can make it more through a half a day. And then we'll end up eating a food that maybe we didn't think we wanted to eat, and then we feel bad about it. But realize that you made it through a half a day. And that's longer than maybe you made it through before. And so the next time you can do a half a day also, and then maybe another minute, add a couple of minutes to your day of making healthy choices. And what you'll find is that rather than this kind of sharp zigzag of ups and downs, you're having kind of smoother undulations.
Right, right.
You can
And
go a little bit longer with taking care of yourself, and then maybe it's not a pint of ice cream, maybe it's the half pint of ice
mhm.
cream. Maybe
Yeah,
it's just something small. And each time, don't beat yourself up. Be really gentle with yourself, just like when a kid's learning how to walk, for example, we don't beat them up for trying to hang on to furniture and then dropping down. We help them stand back up, and we know that they've got that muscle strength, and eventually they'll get to that point. So be really gentle and be very kind and give yourself ease as you make these decisions, and realize that nothing is going to be black and white, nothing's going to be 100%. And you can even factor that into your diet if that works for you. There's some people who just say, oh my gosh, there's no way I can eat, and they kind of have this list of things that will just set them off. So there's some people who just say, I just know I can't eat, butter, whatever. But for some, and you may be one of these people, you meaning people we're talking to in the audience, or it may be that the more strict you have a diet, the more radical the slip is the next day. And if that's your situation, just dedicate a couple hundred calories to having fun. we all need fun.
Right.
You can't just kind of
Yeah.
work all
Yeah.
day long.
Exactly.
I know that there are going to be times when I have a holiday event,
Hmm.
um, birthday, whatever, I'm going to eat cake. Am I going to eat 5 pieces of cake? No, you can kind of design it. But you can say, I've got this kind of slush fund of a couple hundred calories. So maybe I'll back off just a little bit at lunch. And I know that I'm going to have cake. And so allow yourself that. I think
That's
sometimes when we feel like we're depriving ourselves, then we kind of turn around the next day and kind of grab. So set yourself up for success that
Yeah,
way.
because I mean, I always tell this to my patients. There is a hedonic drive in your brain which keeps like the more you stop yourself, the more it's going to like make you do that. I always
Hmm.
tell patients, like even in my obesity practice, if you want to
Hmm.
start losing weight, like concentrate on this. Like pick one meal a week where you want to eat whatever you want to.
Hmm.
One meal a week, and it's not going to kill you. If you're doing great the entire week, that's a reward for you. It's not a cheat day, it's a reward day. That's how it's all in your mindset how you want to do it, and that's going to help you a whole lot.
I think
And
mindset really is
yeah,
important.
mindset is
And yes, and that's
yeah,
why I emphasize having every day, have your food and have your meals just be very sensual.
very sensual. Yeah,
So that
exactly.
it's not just that one meal, that one holiday meal that feels sensual, but all of your meals that feel that way. And
Right.
that takes a little bit of discernment. It takes kind of asking some questions
Exactly.
and taking a little bit of time to kind of think about what really appeals to you. And that's where having a support system can be really helpful, whether it's your physician, whether it's a coach, whether it's your accountability partner, somebody you can of kind of run ideas by and say, hey, this didn't work or this did work. And then that person can ask you, well, what small step can you take today so that you can kind of move forward a little bit, but without being so hard on yourself?
Yeah, and the other thing I always tell is like celebrate your success. That's very
Yes,
important. Instead of
yes.
beating yourself, if even if you have done like half day of not eating the ice cream, not eating the cake, celebrate that. Hey, I have done like 2 days of not eating this. I have done like 3 days. Then your mind will automatically get into the success mode. Then if not, like your mind will get into the mode of like, hey, I'm not done, I'm not doing great, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. It gets into a negative mode, and we don't want that. Right. And let's move to the third question for you. I want to talk, I want you to talk to our audience about like what can we do, because a lot of people struggle with smoking and alcohol and all those risky substances. So what advice would you want to give them, like to if they're planning in the new years to cut back on that or completely stop the risky substances which are very harmful for your body?
Mhm. I think that's a really good question. And I think it really kind of depends on the health effects of people's choices of risky substances. And that's where I think it's helpful to talk with your physician. It sometimes can be unsafe to withdraw from alcohol completely on your own without medical support. And I would encourage people who have what they consider any type of issue with trying to control their alcohol, if they feel guilty about it, if there are other people in their lives who are concerned about it, if they're waking up in the morning having an eye opener, if they're a little bit worried about their alcohol consumption, I would go to your family physician and really disclose to them what your concerns are and be scrupulously honest about how much you're drinking, why you're drinking, and how often, because that will help them determine whether or not you need any type of medical intervention. So I think you just need to be very, very careful from that standpoint. If it's just more that you feel like, okay, that's just extra calories, and this is just something that, I really want to just kind of adjust in my life just so I can feel a little bit healthier, then I think you're probably okay to go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to look at my consumption and just keep a journal of it. And I tell people the same thing with food. Keep an alcohol journal, keep a smoking journal. And when you have that column for whatever it is that you're consuming, whether it's a certain substance or a certain food, or maybe there's certain food that triggers you, on the other column, write down your emotions. Don't even try to control it, even for like a week. Just write down what you're feeling. Okay, I had a fight with my spouse, and so I went outside and I smoked 5 cigarettes or whatever, and then see if you see any patterns. And if you see any patterns that are worrisome to you, that's where it's helpful to work with a coach or with your physician or with an accountability partner. So you can kind of troubleshoot not so much the substance, but the response, using the substance as a way to kind of numb your emotions or maybe not feel emotions so intensely.
Right. That's a good way of doing it. Thank you so much. Yeah, those are all valuable tips and tricks to kind of start the new year's and get the new year resolutions executed. Tell us a little bit about your coaching, Julia, because you do a lot of coaching. So
I
tell
do.
us about that.
Yes, I do. And I've done it for many years. I've been a coach since 2009, and I do work with all people. I've worked with people from all walks of lives, and uh, lately I've been coaching primarily physicians. I have been coaching physicians since 2009, but I think that our situation in some ways feels unique because of the stress levels. But I don't know anyone, particularly after the pandemic, who feels like they're immune to stress at this point. I think historically we're at a pivot point, just as almost as a globally as a species, where we've all had significant stress and significant trauma from the pandemic. And a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, what really matters to me now? What's important? Particularly, a lot of people have had to experience tremendous stress, and they're looking at what matters to them and how to live a life that matters to them. And a lot of times they come to me saying, "Oh, I really hate my job," or they have some circumstance that has brought them into coaching. And then once we kind of look a little bit, a lot of times it's something that seems not related, but actually kind of factors into how happy or how unhappy they are. Maybe it's how they negotiate conflict. Maybe it's how they respond to stress. Maybe it's that they're in a situation that really is not their fault and not their responsibility to change. So I work with people to try to discern what they can change, what they can't, what they can accept at this point, and how to set some goals that will help them move forward in a way that honors their deepest values. And it really, really comes down to looking with people at what matters to them. Because sometimes they haven't really thought that through. They think one thing matters. And then when they kind of discuss it a little bit, they realize, well, I have a different priority. Maybe when I took this certain job, I had one priority, and now my priorities have shifted. And I think a lot of times it's helpful to just kind of be able to process that a little bit, look at your life circumstances, and then realize that maybe you want to shift just a little bit and move out of that situation. So I really help people figure things out on their own, but by being able to kind of brainstorm ideas and then choose their own solutions.
Right. That's awesome. And Julia is a wonderful coach and a good
Thank
friend of
you.
mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, and thank you so much for
Oh,
spending
my
time with
pleasure.
us
Yes, happy to be
and
here.
getting
Yeah.
people to get started on their resolutions. And I hope everybody who's watching this video is going to have a plan about how to execute them. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, Style Your Health MD. And please follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Style Your Health MD. And if you have any questions, please don't forget to reach out to me at styleyourhealthmd@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.